Hello folks, I'm back again. I just have a few more videos for the end of the year, and this is one that probably could have been 2 videos. I'm sort of mashing it up and making this into sort of a variety show. There'll be time codes down below if there's some part of this specifically that you wanted to see. So as you may recall, recently I received a couple of chillers, and I gave those out to other people to see how they would implement them. One was conservation fisheries. Now they were working with the species that the contract had expired on, and they wanted to kind of keep some around. So it has a very particular need for cool water. It needs really cool water. So a chiller was a necessity, but it's kind of such a big deal to kind of connect a typical chiller. This was a great fit for them. The other one was an axolotl enclosure in a fish store. Axolotls do need chilled water, and there's a couple of different ways to do that. But the chiller connected to a rack was definitely a really practical way to chill out a lot of water. So the first of these stories we're going to talk about is about the pygmy sculpin. You cannot buy one of these fish. They're in one little tiny pond on a military base, but they're really fascinating and beautiful. Unfortunately, they are also really shy when I came around. So although Rebecca describes them as coming out and being playful and stuff, they were nowhere to be seen when I went there, and it's not like they have hundreds of them. So I'm relying on some photography from Derek, another person that works there. And you might have seen him in a video or two of mine before. But Derek has provided us with some nice pictures to kind of go along with what we're talking about. But let's cut over to Rebecca and talk to her for just a minute. And you've worked with the pygmy sculpin here at the Conservation Fisheries, right?
Yes, for 4 years, I believe.
So how would you describe these fish?
They are the most personable, cute, adorable little guys. They are one of our most personable fish. They like to come out and dance around, and whenever you walk by, they're hoping you're bringing them some food.
They only eat live food, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, what kind of food do they eat?
We give them blackworms, daphnia, moina, brine shrimp,
of course,
whiteworms, grindleworms, all sorts of stuff.
You cultivate most of that stuff here, don't you?
Yes, we do.
And so, how did you end up studying this very specific fish? Do you guys just you get an assignment and you're like?
Yeah. We each year we divide the work between us, and we all contribute.
So this is a fish that's not likely to ever show up in the aquarium hobby.
No, it's only in one spot.
And no one can get to it, right?
Yeah, it's next to an army base and on the municipal water so you can't. It's got a barrier and no one can really get in there.
How do fish get isolated into such a small area like that?
Well, it's the spring that is very specific. It's at that constant temperature of about 62 to 64 degrees, and so they can't really survive outside of that.
So they need that really cold spring water.
Yes, yeah.
And that's why we put the chiller on the tank.
Yeah, and that spring doesn't have predators, so if there were other fish elsewhere, they'd probably get eaten.
So you've got just a couple left over that are mascots for you all.
Yes, yeah. They're too cute, so we wanted to try and keep a small number.
So if you ever, I guess that are they hard to breed, or were they?
They can be kind of hard.
Like a lot of species have triggers and stuff, like low water or temperature.
For them, it's light. Because that's the only thing that's really changing. The temperature stays the same, so we change the light to trigger their spawning, and they actually do spawn almost year round. They will kind of do little spawning sessions, and with the peaks being in late spring and through the summer, and then they kind of take a little rest, but they'll have a little midwinter spawn for some reason. It's kind of interesting.
What made you want to go into this field and studying fish? Did you always have a love for fish, or?
I did, yeah. From the time I was a very small child, I always was obsessed with fish and always wanted to. I wanted to work with fish in a way that didn't harm them. so like most hatcheries, fish don't end up as food, but I was very lucky to find a hatchery where I could just like grow as many as possible.
Rebecca, thank you so much for talking to us today, and I'm glad that the chillers worked out for you all.
Yes.
Apparently it's working really well. The pygmies are hiding right now, but we'll get some sculpin pictures up and some stills up and stuff like that as soon as we can. And it's really great to come in here and talk to you all, to talk to a real scientist about a fish that no one can buy.
Well, thank you so much.
The understated fish that no one can have. You can't have this fish, but we can, so sorry. Thank you very much, Robert. So that's a pretty cool little fish, and no, you'll never own them, but it's kind of an interesting one to know about anyway, right? But one aquatic critter that you could possibly own is an axolotl, and more than likely you've seen them for sale in other places. Now, I noticed that Kenny over Aquatic Marine was setting up a rack for his axolotls, and I thought it was nice. They had seemed to have a lot of space. I don't know a lot about keeping axolotls, just a little bit from other videos and stuff that I've done and interviews I've done. So I offered the chiller to Kenny. He's implemented it into his tower of axolotls. Let's talk to him for just a minute. Hey Kenny, thanks for joining us again.
No problem, Sean.
So I gave Kenny this other chiller, and he set it up on his axolotl display. Can you tell me a little bit about axolotls?
Axolotls are a very unique amphibian. They don't typically morph and go to dry land like other amphibians do, but it has been known to happen. It's rarely and unlikely.
I think they're a type of salamander, if I'm correct, but what's with those gills, those kind of frilly things on the side?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Sean, because one of the most common mistakes for our young aquarists is they love their axolotls and treat them like an underwater dog, if you will. The issue with that is if you're petting their gills, the little frillies, it's not good for them. It aggravates their breathing patterns and defense mechanisms and things like that. So if you are a hands-on person with your axolotl, we recommend underneath or on the back if you feel like you want to pet your axolotl. They usually, as they get older, become more secure with you, the person that's caring for them and feeding for them. But handle them as least as possible to allow them to keep their slime coat and do whatever they need to do to take care of their skin. Sean, another thing is don't use aloe with axolotls. It's not good for them. And you want to have a good clean environment for them to be in. 20 gallons or larger is recommended. Typically, sometimes they get 10 to 12 inches and they can outgrow a 20 gallon. But it's the basic minimum for starters with a small one. It's going to take a little while for it to grow. It also gives the aquarist a little bit of time to manage water changes. So for our younger people that are into these, it is really a great step into becoming an aquarist with an axolotl. But temperature becomes an issue.
So what is the working temperature of these guys? What do they like the best?
In the store, we target 70 degrees. We would like it to be more in the 60s, but we target 70 degrees because some people aren't going to have a chiller at home, and we want to be somewhere between ideal and acceptable. I do recommend that you try to put an axolotl if you have a basement or something because they do need a fan or a chiller on them most of the time. You want to be in the 60s if at all possible, but please don't go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a chiller just for one axolotl. There's fans that you can clip on by ZoomEd. There's some other options you have to try first before you need to get a chiller. But their temperatures are very important to their color, their health, everything about them. They'll be much happier if you can get them closer to 70 and in the high 60s or less.
But what do they eat? That's another thing that was kind of a deal breaker for me.
Yeah. They're a little bit of a challenge when they're younger to get them to eat. A lot of times they love live black worms, which we sell. A lot of stores do. You can also feed them wanglers, red worms. I do recommend that you use a reputable source for red worms because you don't want to have a pesticide or something come in from outside or dad's old fishing tackle box. You find a worm, throw it on the ground, let it be free, but don't put it in your axolotl's tank.
Tell me a little bit about your display. What all do you got going on here?
We have a fairly new system for axolotls. It holds 12 to 24, depending on the size when they come in. We do have separator containers we can put in. We are trying to have a variety right now. I'm not sure exactly what all we have in stock, but you can take a look here and see. But we typically try to keep 12 or so axolotls in stock.
Thank you so much for sharing what you know about axolotls with us and in your cool rack.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully the chiller works out for you. I think it's probably a little bit more useful in a big system like this than maybe like one individual tank, like you were saying.
The one thing I'll say about this chiller as a person that has to pay the power bill here and at home and everybody else, like most everybody do, if you have free electricity, great. But a 1/10 chiller is more than enough to knock the water temperature down to what we need for the volume of water we had. We did plumb ours in and out of the top tank because, as you know, heat rises in a home, so the lower you can keep your axolotl to the floor, the better, but we don't recommend them on the floor for dog water. Right. But, the lower you can keep it, the better. But so a 1/10 chiller, I do recommend this chiller. It came with a pump and some other accessories that we needed for the install, and it only took us about 20 or 30 minutes to get it up and running once we had the water circulating through it, etc.
It's a pretty simple system.
It is.
All right, Kenny, thank you so much for sharing what you know today. We'll be back to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Both Kenny and the folks over at Conservation Fisheries say that the chiller is working great, is working as described. So that's a couple of months for the Conservation Fisheries and a couple of weeks for Aquatic Marine. I'm going to put a link down in the video down here where you could get a copy. It is an affiliate link. I do get a little bit of money if you do decide to buy something there, just so you know. These videos are just kind of a way to say thank you to Vevor for sending me that product to take a look at. And although I'm not personally vetting it, I do have it implemented 2 different ways, and I think everybody seems happy so far. So far so good. And folks, that's all I got for you today. I've got a couple more videos before the end of the year. Be sure to come by and check them out. I'll see you then. Follow your bliss. Keep a clean tank. Bye-bye.